there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome into Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, your one-stop shop for all things Smite Founders Series, as we make our way on the land to Vegas. I'm Gore, that's Jmac, that's Trelli, and back there, acting like Zordon, is Anthony Malum, and he'll get to join in a little bit later. Charlie's picking his nose. As we talk about what happened this last week in Smite 2, but not to be confused with this week in Smite 2,
which
very different show.
Right.
Although both of them do have clips, and sometimes we're funny
and
on both.
The same guests.
Same guy.
Minus Lermy.
Same, yeah.
Is this just Smite Too Long? I mean, is this just
Smite
this
Too
week
Long
in
didn't
Smite
clip?
2 with extra steps?
This week in Smite 2.
My goodness.
The sequel. We had a lot of stuff that happened. There were some open bracket things that were going on. There were some other open bracket things that were going on, but in different regions. There were Founder Series things going on where some teams did the thing and they're now waiting. So again, I don't know if we have this ready because I didn't think about this, but grand scheme, there were 5, I'm going to call it 6 stages, because stage 6 is Vegas. That's the last step of all of them. Stage 1 was the open bracket. Did that in 2 weeks. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. Already finished. We're still in stage 2, and I don't know why I'm going this way, but that's where we're going. Stage 2, which was, our Swiss stage, where a lot of these teams are still, either qualifying or getting disqualified. But the disqualification is if you lose your Swiss, you go to stage 3. If you win in Swiss, you go to stage 4. Stage 3 is the last chance qualifier. Those open bracket things that I mentioned, those guys, they then go to there with the losers from the other thing. Swiss. Here it is.
Hey.
And then the winners, top teams from the last chance qualifier, would move forward to the playoffs, where we will be having for NA, I believe 16 team, and I'm having to remember the math, slightly less than that for EMEA, but double elimination, 2 weeks. November 16th is the starting week, and then the 24th is the very last day, where we will then qualify, 3 teams from NA, 3 teams from EMEA, and 2 teams will be coming from Latam into stage 5. And that's where we'll have math real fast. 8 of them, again, playing against each other, where 6 of those teams, so we're going to eliminate 2 in that studio land, the knockout stage. 6 of those teams will go to Vegas. Double elim bracket, a lot of fun that'll be had there. But we're still, it's actually wild to think, because we're like 4 weeks in, but we're still in stage 2A. I guess we're 6 weeks in. Still in stage 2, and still getting a lot of things done. And Jmac.
Hello.
You get to go first because you're on this side.
Yeah.
And you're blue.
I'm on the side
Therefore,
with the blue.
You're EMEA.
Right. So I do want to open up EMEA. We put out a tweet about it, which is just for the open bracket side, because you mentioned all the open brackets that are happening. Yeah. And for those who may not have seen the post or may not be a part of that, the EMEA open bracket is now ceasing after this past week, and instead we'll be taking the top 2 teams from there to stage 3. Yep. But that now means that there's only going to be 10 teams that are going to be taking part, because it's the bottom 8 from Swiss and then these 2 that are coming from this open bracket stage. So it'll be two groups of 5, and we're taking the top 3 from each. So it'll be 6 from EMEA that move forward to state, or that from stage 3 to stage 4
Which,
at that point.
plus the 8 that are qualifying from
NA.
Swiss will give you the 14 for the double elim.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of Smite and a lot of teams. And speaking of a lot of Smite, we had quite a bit of it this past weekend. Now, there were a few forfeits across the board for both EMEA and North America. Some teams, whether they were the 0-2 teams who just decided, okay, maybe you don't want to jump into this one. I think we even had one team that was a 1-1 that also had a forfeit into there. But as far as the matchups this week, and I won't go too long on the teams that did end up qualifying from EMEA. Team Risk, this was pretty much the top team from minute 1 of the EMEA region. They found themselves a pretty good strong win over against Smokebreak, and Giovanna Giorgio didn't quite get as clean of a win for them, but were able to break it into the top 2, so they're one of the first 2 teams to qualify along with Team Risk. And on the bottom end of it, as mentioned, there were maybe a couple of forfeits throughout the 1-1 and the 0-2 bracket. Threat Level Midnight did manage to find themselves a win 2-0. Project Win gets their 2-0 over MMB, which means Let's Go Asgard again and MMB, the first 2 teams to go down to the aforementioned stage 3. But this week, we're sending 3 teams to stage 4, and 3 teams to stage 3. As you can see, there's no pretty green boxes anymore. It's all yellow or red, which means you're on the cusp of being able to qualify or on the cusp of elimination, dropping down, not being able to skip that stage. So I think there's some pretty big matchups. I mean, immediately looking at already in the 2-1 bracket, Mockingbird versus Smokebreak is going to be a really big one. Those were the teams that didn't quite make it when they were up at the 2-0. Tythonic Yoda Gang, I think, is going to be great. Honestly, all these 2-1 matches, I think, are going to be really good from EMEA. But one thing that I'm kind of was watching over the course of the matchups this week, and especially, and it's where I want to start, is with the Giovanni Giorgio and the Mockingbird matchup, because this one was a pretty close one, and I think that's to kind of be expected as to where those teams were. Sure, Giovanni Giorgio has kind of put themselves in that 3rd spot. They've kind of been, is this the number 3, the number 4, where is it? But Mockingbird and Scorps were the other 2 teams that were kind of in that contestant for being in that top spot there. And Giovanni Giorgio, while they were able to find a pretty clean game 3 win, their games 1 and 2 were a little bit difficult for them. It wasn't like they coasted through and they were able to find 2 quick wins in this one. It was a bit of a struggle, and it really felt like Giovanni Giorgio were kind of depending on Dardes a lot in the mid lane. This Kukul Khan pick that Dardes has been going to time and time again I'm not going to say has become a crutch for this team, but has definitely become the focal point for Giovanni Giorgio. I mean, when I'm watching this team, I'm keeping exclusive eyes on Dardes as he's playing this. Is he playing the Cuckoo? Is he playing the Hecate? What pick is he going to? And how is the team kind of building around? And also, are you able to land ultimates? And I think that Dardes, not the only person, but one of the few who is so consistent with hitting that Cuckoo ultimate, which is making the big difference in these team fights. But up against them was Mockingbird. And as I mentioned, this was not necessarily a clean set from Giovanni Giorgio. And that's because game 2 is where things kind of shook it up a little bit. We saw Hawk in that mid lane kind of make a transfer away from playing this Neath. We saw the Hecate come back out. And I think that this shows as to why Hecate is such a focal point for a lot of teams, is because that this god can just completely change the dynamic of a team fight. All of a sudden, you thought you had escaped, or you think you're setting up an ambush, and a portal pulls you out of position. Or in a case that we see in this team fight at Fire, it's a portal ultimate thrown out there that says, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to hit anybody, but that then allows Calvin to just charge forward, jump into the portal, and then be able to set up for an Ares ult immediately after. The versatility that this god has for so many of these mid laners is what's affording them such crazy plays in moments like this, that I think as we go into week 4 and eventually into week number 5, Hecate is going to probably maybe see a few more spots on that ban column than we've been maybe accustomed to. It seems to just kind of been letting it go. So you know what?
Yeah.
Play the Hecate. Who cares? Makes sense this past week. Baron Samedi was really good. I mean, that was, I think, one of 2 gods that had, I believe, 100% pick ban rate. Shout out Blues Ultra. They put up a post on Twitter and Reddit showing a lot of those. But Baron was kind of like the god to go to, and for all good reason. He was really good. Has gotten a series of nerfs since then, so I don't imagine Baron is going to be maybe as top priority, but still has a lot of flexibility. Solo, mid, support, a lot of options I can go to there. So I think between the Baron, the Cuckoo, the Hecate, mid is going to be a really big fighting point there. But one team that was able to kind of play away from the mid lane, one team that didn't really care about mid, was Threat Level Midnight. It's a team that's currently down in the red box right now, so they still have to go another week where they're risking chance of elimination. But when they were playing against Let's Go Asgard again, Threat Level Midnight looked like a completely different beast, and especially over in the duo lane. Valerian consistently was finding big picks over in the duo lane, was finding massive plays, and this one in particular where Valerian, and I'm just going to say it, should have gotten the pentakill, and it gets stolen away by his teammate. I believe it was Archie who may have snagged the last hit away in the middle of the kill streak. But TLM, I mean, this was just, I'm going to say it, it was a duo chasm in this lane. I mean, Valerian was, I think, 6-0 and then 7-0 in the 2 games that they had played. Really showed what the Cernanos is capable of, because we don't see a lot of Cernanos right now. I mean, this god is, I think, just at the very edge of being really good. But people are kind of on the fence about which way do we build the Cernanos. Do we go ability style and focus on our or maybe the int build? Do we focus on our abilities, or do you run kind of like Valerian did here, which is you go the strength build and you get crit and pen and you just mow down anybody in front of you. And I think Valerian put up a good display of what Kurnos can do. I think that unfortunately for the Kurnos, there are just a few better gods out there right now, but Valerian makes it look really good for threat level Midnight. I think that's what gives them the potential, because as we come into week number 4, and now that we have 2 new gods in the game, but both those gods are going to be comp banned, so not going to be seeing the Dons, not going to be seeing the Herc this time around. Alma's going to be rejoining the fray as far as I'm aware, unless anything changes between now and tomorrow. Now we get to kind of see what a full-strength Baron and Jmac can do amongst the scene. Jmac maybe didn't look as deadly as the Baron had. I mean, you weren't seeing teams really ban Jmac. She was just kind of going out there to whichever team maybe grabbed them up. The better teams were just grabbing her because they're good at the god, and the god is good, even from Smite 1's time. So there's a lot to look forward to with that one. And then Scorps, the other team that I've kind of mentioned, was in that top 4, top 5 discussion along with Mockingbird, and that had a little bit of a difficult matchup against Discípulos del Chaos, DDK, I guess the easy short way too. The Disciples really gave them a little bit of trouble, especially in their game 1 matchup. I mean, you watch their attempt at ending the game. It was rough. I mean, Scorps walk up and they feel that they've got the confidence, but a 5,000 gold lead isn't a whole lot. When DDK is able to drop Odin cages on you and find good open the gates to kind of start team fights out. One of the struggles I'm noticing with Scorps in their matchups is they're getting good early leads, they're getting good mid games, but their late game is just a little off. And I think if they can find a way to really clean up their late game, this could be a dangerous team. But maybe it's also just that DDK were really good at siege defenses, and they also had a really strong siege defense comp. I mean, Odin, Yamoja, Hecate, good luck escaping at any point. You thought you were out of an Odin cage? Bam, here's a River's Rebuke. You thought you somehow managed to get out of all of that because you had a Phantom Shell? That's not going to save you from getting pulled in by Hecate's ultimate. This could have been a completely different team fight had Davey been able to get that next hit, but unfortunately just dies a little bit after. But I'm really watching this DDK team and kind of keeping eyes on Drake and Kalipo, the jungler and the mid laner of these teams, because the Hecate, once again, able to come in big. But also this Loki. I've noticed that with a lot of the kind of lower and mid-pack teams, that Loki has been really the biggest driving factor, especially in that jungle role. So I imagine that we'll be seeing a lot of Loki priority from these teams trying to move forward. You don't want to be eliminated, so you pick your best stuff. And Loki right now is one of the better junglers. Maybe we'll see some shakeup with Thanatos coming into this week. But then, at least fortunate for Scorps, they were clean things up in game number 2 of that exact same set. And my second clip to kind of talk about them is mostly just on Rapio, because we saw a level of farm from Rapio on Nuwa that we haven't seen from like anybody but like Shinto and Paul back in the SPL for Smite 1 days, where he's hitting level 20 by like 17, 18 minutes and is just going absolutely crazy with how much farm this Nuwa is getting. I mean, just coming into this team fight already, Rapio has a 5-level lead over the support, a 4-level lead over the duo lane, over the hunter from that lane as well. Scorps, they said, okay, well, if our late game isn't that great, what if we just destroy the early game? What if we just power farm through the mid lane and make it to where we don't have to worry about getting to a late game? They're going to be so far down that we'll just be able to steamroll right through it. And I think that's kind of the mindset that we've seen from a lot of teams, is if we can just build a really good lead early enough in the game, then there's no chance that they can ever really fight back, because that 15 to 20 minutes in, we can start going for fire giants. So I think looking forward for Scorps, cleaning up their late game is going to be a big thing for them. And I believe, especially with some of the matchups that are going to be coming up this week, is one that they really have to keep an eye on. And we got the schedule available for EMEA for this week. As mentioned, because of the lesser amount of teams that are in it, we're not going to be having as many games in the off-air. I believe it's going to be 4 on-air and 2 off-air for the regions respectively. But starting out the day, Bills, Goons, and Scorps. I think this is a really good proving ground for Scorps to try and find some success over the Bills Goon roster. Tithonic is another sneaky team that we keep seeing them pop up in these big matchups, but we haven't really gotten to watch a lot of Tithonic. And unfortunately, this was another one where they were kind of off-screen fighting up against Yoda Gang. And I was looking at the match results for this one, and looking at the KDAs across the board, it was impossible for me to tell who was winning at what point of the game, because you have one person who is like 10 people, who has like a 10 kills on one god, and the other team you look over and they've got like 8 or 9 kills on their god as well. It's like, who is leading this game? Because everybody else's KDs do not look that great. So I think for Tithonic and Yoda Gang coming up this week, my mistake, I had a little bit stumbled there, is Tithonic, who had played up against Titans. That was the team that they had faced this past week. It was hard to tell exactly who was winning at one point. Game number 2, Tithonic was able to really clean that one up. And then the Mockingbird Smoke Break, that's probably the one that the most people have their eyes on because that's probably the biggest match of the 2 ones. And then even now for the 1-2 showing Titans Reloaded and Chase the Enemy is also going to be a great one. Just good matches going all around. Everybody on the right side there on the 1-2, that means that they are up for elimination. 2-1 means they're all up for promotion. And the week after, week 5, everybody is up for both as a combo of elimination and promotion. It's either you make it to Swiss or you don't. So for these 1-2s, finding a big win this week and trying to give yourself the best chance possible moving into the last week is definitely the way to go. For these 2-1s, sure, you've got that fallback, but for Smoke Break, for Mockingbird, they had that fallback. They had last week to try and perform, and they fell down now here into 2-1, and now they've got to play against each other, so they no longer have that nice cushion. Kind of unfortunate for them. They were both up in the 2-0s. They both dropped down to 2-1, and now one of them has to drop to that 2-2 spot. So instead of being able to make that top 4, top 5 spot, now they're at threat of elimination. So EMEA, I think this week is going to be a lot of fun to watch. For me, I really want to see what Tithonic is capable of because we really haven't gotten to watch a lot of their broadcasted matches. It's been a lot of just seeing what their match results look like or maybe catching the tail end of a game. So I'm really excited to see that matchup versus Yoda Gang.
Yeah, I think there's those 2 matchups specifically, and guess what? They're in kind of primetime spots for a good reason because they're both going to be really, really fun to watch. And like you said, there's that balance point where you do you still technically have a little bit of a cushion. Like technically, it's not as cozy and comfy for some of those teams as it was for others. It was already getting kind of uncomfortable, so you just got to kind of maintain that and push forward. Jmac, before we rope in that bozo, I'm gonna give you an opportunity because I want to try something specifically to make it like easy for Tristan to see if we can get something. EMEA in a nutshell, like if you could compress it into like 30 seconds.
If I were to say watching EMEA this week, the biggest one that you are going to want to watch probably is the Tithonic Yoda Gang matchup. I think that is the one I'm most interested in watching. After that one, it will definitely be the Mockingbird and Smoke Break because Smoke Break has kind of been a bit shaky in their matchups, and I would say that this is kind of their proving ground to jump back up and show that they were, because this was the number 2 team for a while, and they've been struggling a little bit. So I think for Smoke Break, this is really most importantly for them, their proving week to see if they are still capable of making it to that top spot. So if you're tuning in for EMEA, definitely those are the 2 big matchups that I would say you have to watch.
Nailed it. 10 out of 10. And that's the EMEA, baby. We got it on lock. Man, it really was a lot of fun. I'm also going to toot my own horn because in one of those clips I was casting and I heard it and I was like, no, that sounded pretty good. And I don't get those a lot, so I'm going to take it while I can. Hey, Trelli.
It's real bozo hours.
It's real bozo hours.
I'm back.
I will admit, I can't remember when it was, in the last couple of days, you admitted that your chat has taken to calling you a bozo and that you're not particularly happy.
No, but there's 2 options when dealing with toddlers. You either tell them it bothers you and they keep doing it, or you're or you lean into it. And I've been trying that, so that's why I said real.
What
bozo
I think is
hours.
interesting is I feel like there's been the term bozo thrown around pretty often, pretty heavily.
For sure.
Maybe longer than your chat has been doing.
Oh,
so
for
I'm
sure.
curious, is maybe they learned bad habits from other people.
I don't know. I don't know about that. But what I do know about
is NA.
Is last week NA. It was an action-packed week as per usual.
That was a segue.
Thank you so much. I'm going to focus mostly on, zooming you in on what you missed, and then also getting you pumped for what's to come. So that was my idea for this week. Of course, we can check out the bracket just to refresh your memory if you didn't do a big segment like I did. Of course, team name with 5 M's, Cowabunga, they're gone. You'll never see them again, at least for a month. Now we have to focus on that 2-1 section and, of course, that 1-2 section. The 2-1 section, in my opinion, just based on what we got to witness last week, Food Drive for Globe versus team name with 5 M's, it was a hard-fought game. They played all right, but it just, the last game in particular we'll talk about later just did not end up too well for them. Cowabunga, of course, we did expect them to come out absolutely swinging, and that's exactly what we saw. So name in progress, they're going to have some work to do up against Food Drive for Globe. That's that first matchup. And then Secret Service versus First Name Zach. Definitely the closest one on this list, in my opinion. As far as matches to watch, that middle one, match 26 on your screen, seems pretty it's pretty hard for me to predict who I think is going to be able to take that one. And then Scrumptious versus Garf's Goblins. If you asked me previously, if you look at that 1-0 match, you can see Food Drive for Globe 2-1 to Scrumptious. That's was match 9 up in the top left of your screen. So I was wondering, how is Scrumptious going to look this week, right? How are they going to be able to clean up some of that gameplay, because they 2-0'd Borscht, you know what I'm saying? So that Borscht is in the 1-2 section, definitely not where we thought we would see that team. So I was kind of watching and kind of figuring, like, how is Scrumptious going to look as a unit? How are they going to look as a squad? That was, one of the ways that I was trying to dissect this. And the first clip that I brought was pretty much just dissecting that exact teamwork. You can see it's very rare that we see these teleporters used to go to the right side of the map. A lot of the times it is solo laners going to duo lane, setting up for things like Gold Fury, things like that. But in this Scrumptious versus Borscht team fight, when you're going for a solo lane gank, you may expect like a jungler, but this was the whole squad. If you pay attention to duo lane as we speak, Wrong You and Zapman are slowly but surely on the way to this solo lane fight. And to me, that just shows a level of teamwork that not everyone is akin to just yet. A 5-man gank, 12 minutes in. You're down 4K gold at this point, but Scrumptious just showed that they are able to like squat up like that. So this to me was an eye-opener that they are still working on that teamwork, right? This is not, they're not taking that early loss versus Food Drive for Globe and really, getting too upset about it.
Yeah.
They are looking a lot cleaner, which that's what you need to look for, because as a team of Scrumptious, we thought their competition was going to be Cowabunga, and that was about it, right? Like that was kind of the idea. Here, I was like, how are they going to look? They took an L. Are their egos going to get in the way? Anything like that? Does not seem to be the case. I was impressed with what I got to see from them, at least in that matchup. So should be, a good one up against Garf's Goblins later on this week. So stay tuned for that. Next up, team name with 5Ms versus Food Drive for Globe. Again, I believe Malum was a big fan of these guys. I know he was a big fan of these guys. I don't recall if he actually predicted them beating team name, but they did put up a heck of a fight in one of the games. So yeah, team name, I feel like they took this personally, right? They took dropping a game versus Food Drive for Globe personally. So one of the games was actually very close, and the first clip I brought was Food Drive sort of putting up a fight here. You can kind of tell looking at the stats in the game that it was a really not good. This was the I believe Jmac. Did you tweet out like something along the lines of a full shutout? I forget what you clipped it exactly, but yeah, 0-21. This is not what you want to see, right? As Food Drive for Globe, this was not the gameplay you expect, considering it's 1-1 here. They already took a game off a team name but with 5M, so that's unfortunate. That was not what both games look like, though. My point is, it seemed like team name but with 5Ms took that one game that they dropped, and they said, yeah, we're not letting that happen again. And this was that game I was talking about. Heck of a defense, though, for Food Drive for Globe. I mean, this is a 2 versus 5. Happen stalls out the defense perfectly. You got some more damage coming from Tegvier, who's going for that traditional Susano ADC that he loves to go so much. And this is not an easy defense to make. You can see the massive lead they have. Food Drive's up like 17,000 gold at this point, but still a 2v5 is a 2v5. You know what I'm saying? You are 35 minutes into the game. Not easy to deal with as well. So basically, the summarization of what I watched here was, yes, of course, Scrumptious still clean, team name, but with 5M still clean. That's not going to change at all. But Food Drive for Globe did not take that L laying down. I hope that doesn't kill their confidence going into next week, because they're definitely still a fan favorite to qualify.
Yeah.
Leading up into this week. They have a matchup against Name in Progress, so that is definitely a match that I favor Food Drive for Globe, but there's, we have learned that just because you have higher seeding, just because you are the expected dub, does not mean that some of these teams cannot bleed. Last up, we had Garf's Goblins versus Alec Hate Club, and remember, we already talked about Scrumptious. Scrumptious is going to be up against Garf's Goblins. These are going to be Scrumptious' opponents this week. So, I mean, Garf's Goblins still look clean, man. They are sitting at the 2-1 spot going into this week. So, one match away. If they're able to upset Scrumptious, they could definitely qualify. And they were looking very clean up against Alec Hate Club. But, of course, Alec Hate Club not quite as held at that same standard as Scrumptious is. So is being able to make plays like this, where I believe it's a double kill. You have two different members of your squad being able to just clean up the back line. That was the question that I think I wanted to pose here is double, lots of trouble. That's it. I couldn't remember the exact line. I put double. Perfect for Halloween. Can they fight up against Scrumptious? I definitely think they could put up a fight, but again, if I have to look at all of these matchups, Food Drive for Globe, I got to give them the edge versus Name and Progress. Scrumptious versus Garf's Goblins, got to give Scrumptious the edge in that one. But Secret Service versus First Name Zach, that was the one where I'm like, I've studied these teams thoroughly going into this situation, and I didn't even write down a prediction because I erased it so many times. I was like, if Gore asked me, like, who do you think's going to win? I really don't know. I did, hold on. I actually put one note. And I remember it said...
one no.
Yeah. It says in parentheses, it said Zach, and then I crossed it out, and I said service, and then I said question mark, maybe? Like, it seems pretty evenly matched in my opinion, but this could go either way. But yeah, I wanted to make sure you guys knew exactly who qualified and who to watch. Now, as Jmac mentioned in his, that 1-2 section, there will be teams going home, but none of those guys that have one win have the ability to qualify just yet. So I'm going to wait until they get to that 2-2 section, which everyone will be at in 2 weeks from now, where you're either do or die. You either win or go home. We can go ahead and bring up the schedule for this weekend just to get a vibe as to which of those matches you're going to be watching. Again, as you can see by the little, I guess the legend, we can call it. If there is a star next to the matchup, it's going to be on broadcast, which means Food Drive for Globe versus Name and Progress. Should be an absolute banger. Secret Service versus First Name Zach, in my opinion, the closest match on this list, at least should be. And then Scrumptious versus Garf's Goblins. Maybe a sleeper good match. Also, again, Garf's Goblins took one spill, and then since then, I think they've been looking very clean. And Scrumptious also took a spill and has been looking very clean. So, should be a banger. Then, of course, as you can see, the 1-2 matches, Alec Hate Club versus Borscht, a team that you would not expect to be dropping into that 1-2 section, but still does have to fight back just like anyone else. We will see which one of those squads are going home.
Is Alec Hate Club named Alec for the Alec I'm thinking of, which would be who they're playing this week?
No, one of their players, Cosmic Vibes, their name is Alec.
Okay.
So this is not like targeted towards Fight OK. I was like, well, this is a really awesome matchup. They just don't like that guy for whatever reason.
Can we pretend that they hate Fine OK?
The best Alec will win, though.
Yeah.
We can say that.
Can we pretend that they hate Fine OK just for, like, driving up some drama towards the match?
Yeah. It'd be very funny for this week.
Okay, then check out our matchup on Sunday.
Alec Hate Club, they hate this guy.
Alec,
his name pops up.
Alec versus his haters. Coming up soon. But yeah, there's going to be the schedule. Make sure you're tuning in. And again, you'll have all the information about where you think is going to win. And maybe you, the viewer, can tell me who you think between First Name Zach and Secret Service, because it's going to be a close one.
And you, the viewer, can determine who the better Alec is by watching on Sunday. What was that? At 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Yep.
To see who the better Alec is. Is it Alec or is it Alec? Only one way to find out. Tune in.
And you absolutely can.
That would have been a really, really good stinger for like a commercial, but we don't.
We don't have a commercial, but what we do have is even more regions. But if I was the NA guy,
you would like maybe try to. Well, I guess you want to give one like super succinct?
I mean, that was pretty succinct.
That was pretty succinct. Yeah. You know what? Maybe
I tried to keep it nice and to the point.
And you nailed it, Charlie.
Thank you so much for that.
You didn't just try. You did. You accomplished.
My goodness.
But yeah, so that's EMEA, and that's NA.
Yep.
And I'm just one person.
Yeah.
And there's 3 other regions. And I realize the setup for this doesn't work because what are we going to do? We're going to bring in one person to cover the 3 other regions. We got Mr. Anthony Malum somewhere in the void and found as you jump in. Latam, Brazil, and you can go in for the year.
I was trying to give him a wet willy.
And APAC. I know.
Leave me alone.
There's been and you can correct me if I'm wrong and go in whatever order you want, but I feel like we've seen a lot coming in from APAC, even though and maybe necessary because like they're super early in the morning for me, so I get to catch like the very tail end as I'm getting ready for Sundays. As to what's going on over there. Otherwise, a lot of these regions are going on around the same time, which I'm sure you're going to mention where they are, because like the Latam is getting like a full Spanish cast, which is absolutely insane. But I do know Brazil's been giving you a little trouble with the clips, so I'm kind of curious what's been going on over there.
Yeah, a little bit of trouble with the clips, but I have good news. We actually have a Brazil clip this week, which we'll get to in a second. But I have a little bit more updates. I've been following it closely. I talked to a couple of the players from the Brazil region, and it's still ongoing. A smaller bracket this previous weekend, but it was actually kind of an interesting one because a lot of the names I've been mentioning, I think I talked about how there was a back-to-back winner, and Felino Zilla, they did not win again. They actually fell in what was basically a round one, but a quarterfinals due to the smaller bracket size. And PPP, who I had mentioned was a favorite in terms of skill, but were all playing on ping, they made it to the grand finals, where they did fall to Bruto X-Fire AMV. Heck of a name, I gotta say. They took it this week in the grand finals for the bracket, and pretty surprising to see PPP make it there. They took down Bob Brazilian, who a few weeks ago I talked to Power ST2, a player on Bob Brazilians, and they are all local. They scrim a whole lot. They even had their own mini roster apocalypse to try to clean things up, and to fall to a team on ping is a bit interesting, and I'm sure they feel the same way. And for PPP, it's finally, I feel like for them, they must feel like they're finally playing up to what they expected to do. They are playing on ping, always worth considering, but they're having a really hard time getting it out of that quarterfinal zone of the brackets up to this point. But I actually want to talk about the third place matchup, because it was somebody was streaming, thank goodness, VOD on. I was so excited. I went through, I watched the third place matchup between Bob Brazilians and Felino Zilla. And I caught this clip where I genuinely was watching the whole game. This clip is me just watching the minimap and losing my mind. It's kind of similar to a clip you guys had showed on This Week in Smite 2, which I think you'll see what I mean. My suggestion for this clip is watch the map and watch the story of the Anubis, because I genuinely cannot get over what I saw. And it kind of goes alongside this idea of it's going to be mechanics that put you apart, but this is crazy. So you see the Anubis already alone, already taking the fight, already CC'd. The whole world is there.
You can even see his health bars not looking too great right now.
He just lives forever.
Still going.
This buys the time. Like, I just can't get over it. Still alive, by the way.
Finally died.
Just now goes down. And that fight, this doesn't end the game for Felino Zilla. They ended up getting a Phoenix. They go grab Ancient Fury, then Siege for the end. But the fact that the Anubis just kind of stood there and face tanked and said, well, I mean, go ahead, and bought all that time for the rest of their team to come up and make the big time play is pretty insane in my mind. And it was cool because we got a chance to see, while again, that was the third place matchup, the team whose perspective we were watching, Felino Zilla, they were the winners the past couple of weeks. So you get to see some of the kind of mechanics we're seeing, some of the team play. I will say the map play was really impressive watching the VOD that I did pick up. So it's been cool to see from Brazil. And like I said, a surprise winner who's kind of came out of nowhere. Same thing with who they went up against in PPP. But Brazil continues to be fun to watch, and I'm looking for more. I know I was talking to, and I'm not I feel like I can say this. I was talking with the Australian community, the SMITE OCL team, and they've actually been looking at trying to get some Brazil games cast themselves to try to get some games cast and do some rebroadcast of those. Hopefully that ends up happening and we can see some casts of games, even if it's in English as opposed to Portuguese. We can still get to see it a bit, which could be really cool.
Yeah, no, and that's something I remember. Spoiler alert, I watched the thing that you're talking about. Yeah, it was nice to see and hear, and I do, much like you, hope that they can get a couple hands on for some of those games, just so we can have not just the broadcast, but like for everybody, right? Because I mean, cash prizing, you're in Brazil, like there's a lot going on, and learning about some of these teams. It's been fun over the last few weeks watching their I guess their rises, their falls, their mountains, their valleys, all of it.
It makes me wish I could know the full nitty-gritty of each storyline, each player, like we do for NA or EMEA, but hopefully down the line that becomes something a bit more common and attainable for us. But a region we do know a lot about is, let's get into Latam, because that's really important for the average viewer, because that's teams you're going to see 2 spots from LATAM are going to be
Yes.
able to compete and see how far they can go. They might even have a chance to make a run for Vegas. And there is two so clear frontrunners right now in LATAM. Malibu and Los Leal finals every single weekend, and Los Leal has yet to be beaten yet in those finals. They are looking like a surreal dominant force. Now, I didn't bring clips from just the finals this time. I kind of watched through a bit more of the broadcast. I'll be honest, I love listening to the Spanish casting. I have zero idea what's being said, so sometimes some of the context is very lost to me, and I got to catch up afterwards. But in talking with Dilo and Piku, the first clip I brought in was a bit interesting because while there is those top two teams, there's always the chance of somebody falling and somebody making a mistake and there being an upset. So who's in that third spot? Team Juan has been a team hanging out in that third spot for a while. Dilo and Piku both refer to them as the third best team in the region at the moment. In week 1, they lost to Malibu. So that's kind of, they're all losing to Los Leal, to Malibu, so on and so forth. But in this clip that I brought, it's Team Kamikaze versus Team Juan. And Team Kamikaze, they've had a really tough bracket so far, to the point where Dilo and Piku were almost rooting for them in a team fight, which we will see, as that is the first clip I have. But it's just kind of it's unlucky for Team Kamikaze because they're able to make plays like this happen.
Ellos tienen capacidad de robarlo, Juan. No puede pasar otra vez. El River of Duke tal vez puede apagar los fuegos. Ziz va a tomarlo por el lado de Kamikaze, pero Extreme ya está muerto. Pueden sobrevivir, no sé. Ziz casi muerto por parte de Hija de Fuego. Venganza del objetivo. Doble kill por Lona. Team Kamikaze ha robado el objetivo, pero no sé si ellos van a sacarlo con su vida.
There was so much hope for Team Kamikaze, for the casters. They really thought that this was going to be the comeback arc for Team Kamikaze. They kept the game closer than it appears. If you notice, the gold isn't as bad as it could be in a 28-9 scoreboard. But Juan ended up coming out on top. And like I said, Juan currently far and away the third best team in the region for LATAM.
Look, not to
Sendo goes down.
toot my own horn, but I understood Fuego and double kill for Bologna. So,
huge.
My Spanish is kind of picking up from these broadcasts.
My favorite is hearing Dilo, who is born in America, as Caucasian as me. Every now and again, Dilo, with this particular words that are Smite-related words, he'll drop the accent he uses while he's casting Spanish. So he'll be full accent, full Spanish, and you hear Pyromancer. And then back into the accent. I know Piku makes fun of him as well, and it's just it's so great. The sewer casts are always a fun pickup, but I have more clips from the sewer cast and walking in a bit more too on Los Leal. I talked about Juan being that third place team in the region. This might be the funniest clip I've seen so far from the Spanish casting side of Smite in the Sewer. So Piku is the main analyst on Smite in the Sewer so far, and Dilo and him have this running joke of Piku's a very, I don't want to say harsh analyst, but Piku likes to call for an F6 every now and again, and by every now and again, basically every time a team is getting smacked. And in this game in particular, Piku was saying it a lot. He was like, oh, Juan, just F6. You're playing Los Leal, you're F6. And he kept saying it as a joke. Team fight breaks out, and I do have, the kind of contextual translation from Dilo. Let's let the clip play, and then I'll kind of explain what happened to the poor casters.
Arc. Esa es la segunda parte de la historia. Zonqui, la protagonista, puede sufrir bastante daño. Movimientos escudados, y acá está el apoyo. Ha reversado los miembros. Jisoo muerto, matanza por Belona. Y
F6.
2 miembros más puede ser F6. Ellos han tomado tus consejos, Piku.
F6.
Juan ha
¿Qué pasó ahí?
perdido.
Madre mía, cómo le hundió el martillo en todo el cráneo.
I love
F6, no te puedo
Dilo's
creer.
description of this to me.
No.
It's
La
they're
primera
fighting.
¿Qué pasó ahí,
Dilo's
boludo?
setting up this big, grandiose team fight. He says Zonqui is the protagonist. He's suffering some damage. What can happen? And then Piku goes F6 as sort of an ad lib or a pop off behind Dilo speaking. And Piku says it again after the Bologna shows up and kills everybody. And then they actually F6. And Dilo doesn't realize it, and Piku's just in full-on shock. So Dilo goes, wait, did they F6? Piku freaks out, and we hear Piku get incredibly beyond excited. And it was unfortunate because Dilo and Piku were talking about how Juan, again, third best team in the region, but Los Leal is just too good to compete with for them at the moment. It's hard to make comparisons to teams for North America or for EMEA because they do play a very different style. Los Lille, from what I've watched, though, seems very mechanics heavy. I actually, a bit of a spoiler for some stuff that might play over the weekend, but I did talk to a member of Los Lille, and in talking with them, they all play NA ranked, but they don't scrim NA teams. They only scrim Malibu. So Los Lille and Malibu scrim each other pretty exclusively. They play NA ranked, and then they play casuals locally. But that's how they've been improving. They're just playing NA ranked and trying to go against players of that caliber and hoping they get into those strong matchups, whether it's in an elite queue or otherwise. And it's kind of starting to pay off for Los Lille, I gotta say. I mean, you can even see it in their play. Like, the Bologna just looked kind of unstoppable in that moment. And it's just, when have we seen Bolognas in NA or EMEA recently?
Few and far between. I feel like I saw one in the EMEA, but I can't remember if it did well, so I don't know if I want to talk about it.
Exactly.
I will say, though, Mal, and this is like the grand storyline thing, Los Lille, it does seem kind of like they're setting themselves up for the, hey, you guys dominated everywhere where, like, it still matters, but after a while, it's like, you know what, you're going to make it to where you're heading. So I'm kind of now curious about, like, the end of it all, right, where they end up, because, like, when you dominate this hard, sometimes that's like when you end up being set up for the opposite of success.
Exactly.
It also means they could just, roll over everybody. But, we won't talk about that part. That's a boring future.
And I was speaking with Decoy on Los Lille, and I asked a lot of the same questions. I was like, well, are you guys, you've been winning so much. Are you already kind of looking ahead? Are you studying North American VODs? Are you watching Founder Series VODs and looking at what they're doing draft-wise, pick-wise? And Decoy was like, we're unbothered. We'll do fine. Like, full confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, they're calm, they're focused. The thing that most of them are the most excited for, Los Lille in particular, I thought it was cool. They're a full Argentinian team. Most of them are just looking forward to the experience of being able to travel and compete. And that's where they're getting their inspiration from for the competition. And, in the history of SMITE, if you do go back through those old SPL days, I think we all know some of the teams who've done the best were teams that were, storyline first, inspiration first, motivation first, and everything else will catch up with you for sure. And for example, I had talked about with Decoy. Unfortunately, I did an interview, which we'll see this weekend, but I didn't get this part in the interview because I didn't think to ask it until after. But I was like, did you watch? Have you ever watched, Lich versus Allegiance or anything like that from back in the day? And Decoy goes, yeah, we haven't watched it. We all know about it, but we want to be better because we want to be the team that just wins it all. So, and it was just that casual of a point dropped. And I was like, all right, that's perfect. But I do have one more clip from Latam before we get to off the rails, and it is finals. And this is just pure, let's look at a team fight between Los Lille and Malibu, the teams we can expect potentially to see play in
matar a las personas que
those
son más
finals and
squishy.
see what we
Y
can
eso resultó en una
potentially
pelea,
see.
fíjate, de fuego, un toro tier segundo, y también tal vez un
So in this
boscada
one,
por parte de
Malibu
Los
has never
Lille.
taken a
Mira
game off
detrás,
Los Lille.
eso es una
This was the
trampa.
closest they got, and
Bonito
Dory
el
said
face.
nah.
Y también cerrado el libro de vida de
Dory and
tres
Decoy.
miembros de Malibu. No se importa sus gigantes de fuego. Quédate en casa. Los Lille están acá por todo.
Malibu just cannot figure out Los Lille, and it just continues to be that way. Dory's the team captain. Decoy, from what I've been watching, seems to be that sort of sneaky member who's always up in kill feed and always ahead in farm, but maybe a little bit falling to the wayside in attention behind Dory. But Los Lille is a team to keep in mind. When we get closer and closer to that phase where we actually see those two LATAM teams show up, it will know quickly, I think, on how they're actually going to perform. But once they're closer, they're talking with teams. If they do expand their scrim, since they're playing ranked on ping anyway, Los Lille and Malibu could be pretty threatening to the rest of the competition in the Founder Series.
Yeah, I'm really excited, again, to see them, because as you mentioned, they've kind of been dominating. Still a couple weeks left for them to potentially still dominate, and I guess we'll keep our eyes on them as the weeks go by. But it does sound like maybe some bias. Maybe I start rooting for Malibu just to see them get a dub.
Right?
Yeah, just see what happens and see where they go. But unless I'm wrong, that seems to cover all of LATAM and Brazil. And so now you can shift across, not just to a completely different continent, but also across a whole ocean, things like that. And we can talk about APAC.
Yeah, my favorite people to try to schedule with for sure when we've talked so far. It's always fun, especially because we try to use, the Discord time changes, and they've just gotten to a point of sending me screenshots of, hey, you wake up at 9 a.m. and hit us up, and then we'll be ready for you. And I'm like, okay. But no, APAC continues to be so exciting to watch. Again, being streamed on SMITE game in very early morning, Sunday morning for Eastern time zones, and it's so much fun to watch. Their production quality is fantastic. Their casters are doing a great job. Really fun to listen to, especially with the accents. Biased. I think accents are cool. I'm a simpleton. My bad. But talking with them as well, the lore of their region runs so deep. And it continues. It's almost, in a way, it reminds me of Latam, because there is 2 top teams right now, and it's everyone else trying to fight in. I mentioned, and I know they've had a lot of fun joking with with Team Fish about this, but I called Fish rank grinders. That's the information I got, and Fish was like, "We're what?" So they took that as a bit of a chip on the shoulder. But Sunday School continues to be dominant. Fish is just trying to compete. And then you've kind of got those 3rd, 4th teams that are really fighting in. But for this week, for APAC in particular, I watched the majority of the VOD. And because last week I went so deep, I kind of talked team profiles. I talked a lot about their pick selection, which, just to touch on shortly, they did focus on Fenrir, Jingwei, and Baron. That was the 3. If you didn't ban one of those 3, it was whatever. Sometimes Odin would be that 4th one out, but Fenrir, Jingwei, top priority. Ares, that's old news, gone. That was the God selection for APAC. But this week for clips, I just kind of brought some ones that I found were fun. So the first one, Drink or Drunk, they just kind of walk up and you'll see what they do, and the casters were not prepared for what Drink and Drunk did. It's kind of wild.
Enough damage, lots on him. Are they looking to end the game now? Possibly. They've got a wave coming in, but no Loki with them. Schmitty is doing a lot of damage to this Titan. Where did the health go on this Titan? That's the game done. What's happened?
Where did the Titan health go?
They just were done. And if you remember what last week from Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, I talked about Raven Guard as being this team that's surprising a lot of people. They've got some good stuff showing up. It's a very competitive region where the top of the top is very, very good. So when you play against them, you learn a lot. Just like North America, when you see teams like Garth's Goblins or Food Drive for Globe, they improve more and more. It's been the same thing for Raven Guard, but Drink and Drunk just kind of said, we're done. And GG go next. Walk up to the Titan. I love the caster's reaction of, wait, they're ending? Oh, wait, they can end? They can end the game? We're done. Oh, okay. It's over to you, Desk.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, especially in that position, because one of them had no health. You've got 3 dudes. You're going in, and you could hear the rationale of are they going in? Well, they do have a minion wave. ... And by the time that the dots connected, the Titan was dead. It was just oh, okay.
Exactly. And that's kind of been a lot of the thing for just, again, for APAC in general. A lot of the play is smart. I'll give them that compliment. And everything we say, by the way, about APAC, right to the Discord, right becomes a thing. I called Filks week 1. That's now their name. Same thing with I called Yada. That's their name. So anything that we say, just know that takes over their community. So you got to keep that in mind.
You've given me a lot of power here, and I don't know yet what to do with it.
I forget what it was. There was something that you mentioned that they picked up on. I wish I could remember it. I should have written it down, but APAC has been fun. And speaking of fun, the number 2 team, Fish, ? Which, by the way, that's a thing. That's what it is. The casters, they
Fish?
all go, Fish? They'll interrupt a team fight. You'll hear one of their main shoutcasters mid-rap god of a team fight go, Fish? And then go back into the team fight. And that's all you're doing for.
I'd blame Trelli for that more.
I'm glad.
Because you were the one that was
what would you guys have done?
Good.
Really?
We need more power.
Really emphasizing on that.
But the second clip I brought from APAC is the number 2 team, Fish, just kind of being good. I think you'll see what I mean from the clip, but they're just good. It's good Smite.
They have been playing Smite for a really long time.
I agree.
Assassinate goes massive there. That was a 3-man assassinate, and Open the Gates picks up the rest of the team straight into the River's Rebuke, and Yada will be picking up 2 kills for himself. That's a killing spree. That was a massive engage. What was that? That was crazy.
Like
It really was crazy. And I gotta say, shout out to the casting there
cleanest
too. I love just
execution of
pure
Ultimate.
excitement. I don't know what to do with myself casting. It's always so fun to listen to.
Eye of the
But in the
tiger,
big time
picking out
ultimates
that
like that,
engage
they make it even
perfectly,
easier.
and
Simply with the crazy low
giant
field and Tagata
as
following
well.
up
Crazy.
perfectly. I mean,
Oh
I
my
don't even think
God.
we've seen a full. We've seen some cool combos with Hecate in North America, EMEA. I don't think we've seen one that perfect in execution that wasn't kind of unintentional.
Yeah, no, a lot of it, like, making anything line up in a game like this is so impossible, even at a competitive stage. But to see that, it's baffling.
Yeah, it really is. It was something.
It's
Again, the hype
impressive.
is so great. So make sure you guys check out their casting again. Sunday mornings really early. You can see them on Smite Game, and then their YouTube is at OCL Smite, and they post all their VODs over there. But for the last clip overall, it was a stomp. I'm not gonna lie. I'll let the scoreboard tell the story of the stomp for Sunday School. But I titled this clip. So I said APAC finals were a stomp. So this clip is just Sunday School being better, and they can enjoy that ego boost.
A lot of ultimates down at the moment for Fish. Makes it very difficult for them to
See?
engage into
I
this
love
one.
it.
But great use of the CC coming out from the Emojo. In the meantime, Platinum Pete fires off that Brutalize and is in deep into the backline here. Using that Ragnarok as well. He completely separates Simply out from the fight, trying to take this 1v1, but it's never a 1v1 when it's Sunday School. Till he finds a kill onto Simply and immediately charges up that World Weaver. Till he's Superfan in the meantime.
Great
Using that
knockup, too,
ultimate.
from
Look at the whirlwind
Superfan.
though. It's trapped so many members of Sunday School inside it. Madness Inflicted finds Yada. Madness Inflicted. Tilly finds ulti. Look how low this Ymir is. Platinum Pete gets Osha. How did no one from Sunday School die there, Jay Beto?
Yada does so much damage, but just can't get any of those
Exactly
kills. It's
what
like,
was
oh, a
said.
little
How
more
did no
gold,
one
get
from Sunday School die? There's team fights you can look at. I know I've heard the terms that, the dichotomy of a team fight said before. I like to steal that myself, where you can look and you can see what kind of level of play you're looking at by looking at a team fight, the decisions made, the positioning, the target focus, and you can kind of almost see the comms that might be there. And for Sunday School, they look fantastic. I would put that on par with a lot of the better teams we're accustomed to, and it really genuinely impressed me. It had me wishing, we could almost fast forward a bit to a world where maybe we could see what a team from APAC could do, like we talked about with Latam against some teams from North America from EMEA, because it really is just impressive play, and it's what Sunday School continue to do, and I think they are the hard favorite right now in the region. Their coach is Sharks, who's pretty well known as well, so they've got a lot of knowledge behind them. Fish are still trying to compete. Some weeks they've done better than others, and I think that's their main storyline right now. I know the casters are pushing it with interviews as well of who's going to be the team to actually beat Sunday School, if anybody. Will we get to that point? And the last thing I want to mention for APAC, because I had a lot. I'm sorry. 3 regions is a lot to cover, okay?
Yeah, it is.
But I just got to shout out this interview I saw that APAC did. So they do interviews before and after their broadcast. And at the very end, they interviewed Vintage, who shows up, and it was so... again, this is going right into their Discord, I'm sure. A big ego boost for Vintage. It was very adapting coded. Just showed up, leaned back in a chair, tank top on, so confident, webcam you can find at like any dollar store. No worry in the world. Smiling away. I'm better. Like those vibes are so great from that community. It really does. It almost feels nostalgic in a way for me. I've watched SPL forever back in the day, and it feels very nostalgic watching APAC. It feels like I'm watching, and I mean this in a very positive way. It feels like I'm watching regular season SPL season 3 sometimes. It's a lot of fun to watch.
I mean, you get some of the most exciting moments from just players that are scrappy, but also like the confidence, like that shows. Yeah. Not just, I guess, also in outfit, but also in gameplay. So it's
outfit adds a lot to it.
Yeah, the outfit's the boost, right? But sounds like APAC's going well, LATAM's going well, Brazil's going well.
I did it.
Yeah, you did it. We got through it. We've got so much. All of that. Hey, guess what? There's still going on this weekend. There's a lot of Smite. Literally all the time. Like you could probably over the weekend trip on Twitch if there's a way that you can digitally trip and find your way into a competitive stream one way or another. You had mentioned it, but like we've got on the Delo with underscores in between. That is going to be running like the LATAM streams. I know they also do some of the off-air streams. The Jmac, you can tell me a little bit more because I want to say it's 4:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday for APAC, which is sometime for them.
Which is about, I think it's 6:30 p.m. AEST is the time zone for that.
and you know what? No matter how many times I hear you say that, I'm
gonna
gonna forget. I'm also going to forget that that's a time zone, just in general, because every time you say it, I'm like, hey, EST. That's weird. We're EST. I get it. It's Australian, whatever. But I'm just going to
You
continue.
guys turning and looking. I want to turn and look at my wall as you're speaking, you know?
Yeah, just like turn to glare into the yeah, there, and now you're watching Trelli.
Right at Trelli.
And then see, if I look like there, it looks like I'm looking past Trelli to you, probably, hopefully. I don't know.
Past my
the camera's
Trelli.
over there. But we've got NA, EMEA.
Yep.
As you had mentioned, the EMEA open bracket finished, finito, going forward. 2 of those teams are already there, so we're just waiting for Swiss on that, which again is Saturdays and Sundays starting at 11. And then on the other side of things, of course, NA, you can find here starting at 3 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays.
Of course.
I think we did all the check boxes. Anybody?
We did the thing.
You know what, Malum? I'll get you for this one. Final thoughts on everything.
Final thoughts on
Yeah, and
everything.
it can, you know what? It can go beyond Smite.
See you Saturday. That's his final thoughts on everything.
I'm glad.
there's a
See
lot
you
of Smite
Saturday.
going
I'm
on.
glad the weather's getting cooler. I hate heat.
True.
Yeah, hey, nice. Yeah, solid. And I think we did it. So with further whatever I'm trying to say, we'll see
When you did that earlier, I lost it.
tomorrow.